Peter, first of all, congratulations on the Grand Duke of Corsica. It's an amazing film. But the first question I have for you is what drew you to this project? It's extremely topical, especially, and it's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious, but it
is hilarious, and it's kind of complicated, but sometimes when you do these so-called art movies, like smaller independent movies, it's a lot of heart put in from everybody, from a director, screenwriter, everybody working with the project. Because you know yourself, you go in and the wage is not the best, you know, and everybody's more or less on a minimum or SAG minus 45 or something, or 95. But it seems like in these smaller movies, people are more eager to put in their own heart. Even people working with, you know, the electrical and gaffers and everybody, you talk, you're close. It's a minimal crew and you have more contact and people give their opinion and say, that was really funny in the rehearsal when you did. And it can come from anybody, you know. Usually when you work in the bigger industry, you're very isolated as an actor together with a director. When you go on this smaller project, which I've done a lot of lately, is that people are, some directors even finance part of the movies themselves with a credit card. So they put their house on a second mortgage just to get the thing done. And, you know, sometimes it takes a lot of heart to do a project because none of the big studios wants to do it. The Duke of Corsica, they say it's a cool script, but you know, who the hell wants to see this? But I don't care. At least one, you know, when I grew up in theater, my mentor told me, it doesn't matter. It's 900 people out there, but your mission tonight is to go out and really move one person.
Right.
That's the only thing you have to do. Maybe to alter that person's life in a better way. Just to plant a little seed in their heart, in their soul, so they can lead a better life. That's your aim every night. Not to get the applause from 900 people, but one person. Select one person in your head. And that's also what I do. I carry that with me into theater and into movies and theater and I carry that into movies and TV and whatever format I'm doing, even voices, like to reach one person. I'm talking to one person, not a horde of people.
Right. One
person always. I have a designated receiver in my head, and that's with this movie too. It's like it's not going to be a blockbuster. It's not, but it's going to be there and it's going to bubble on streaming. And some people are going to see it and say, this is kind of weird, but there's some moments in this movie I won't forget. Whereas some movies you go and see and you walk away and you forget about it when you get to your car or, you know, to the subway. It's gone. It's in the past. You enjoy the 1.5 hour to 2 hours you had with your popcorn and getting spoon fed or forced fed. But I really like myself to watch stuff that invites me on a journey,
right,
and that demands a little bit from me. You know, it's the old saying, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
And that is a good saying for me, because I don't like to watch things that are, well, you know what I'm alluding to, but everybody figured out who killed the guy. But the characters in the plot, they don't know. And we know, the audience know, especially TV cop dramas. We all know who did it. But the people in the drama, they don't know. And we think, but we still look at it because it's easy. It's easy fast food. This is not easy fast food. This is a little hard. It's like trying some Venezuelan native dish.
Yeah, you know, I love the fact, because you brought this up earlier, is that, you know, it reminds me a lot of like the Grand Budapest Motel, where it's a great film that has that's extremely well written. You know what I mean? I think that the one thing about this film is that Daniel Graham did a fantastic job of writing these characters. I really,
Yeah.
really like the writing in this movie and the direction in this movie. But one of the questions I had for you is, can you talk to me about working with Daniel Graham? Because he's an amazing director and writer. And can you talk to me about the collaboration process working with him and how working with a director, writer maybe helps inform your performance a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. From the beginning, Daniel said, and I had the luck, to team up with Timothy Spall, which I admired on screen before, even seen him on stage. And he's a great actor, and he comes from the same background as me at theater. And to create a character, it takes some time. And when we met up with Daniel, a lot of telephone calls in the beginning because they're in England, I'm in LA. And we talked about the characters, and Daniel said from the beginning, I write, it's my writing, it's the same language, but you have to form your own characters. So for me, it would be nice if we could meet, not just to rehearse, but maybe before we shoot a scene or the day before we shoot a scene in the evening after a wrap, we can sit and plan the next day and just read the lines and see what comes up. And sometimes we improvise. We said the lines are very, here they don't fit really. It would be better, could I say this? And Daniel was, yeah, of course. It's your character and find the language. And so we sort of did a theatrical rehearsal every evening or every morning together with the director. And he said, but I really like this line, in the beginning. And I said, okay, let's keep that. If I can change this line. And he said, yeah, absolutely. But keep this, because that's a little love of mine when you just say those three words. Oh, okay. So it was like creating, let's say, an adaptation of a book when you're on stage together with a director and a writer, and you adapt a book. Then you together work with a cast and you develop. And after 3 weeks, you have a play, you have the lines.
Right.
And that's how we worked. And that was really nice. And I must say to Daniel, because sometimes we took away some of his darlings, I'm sure. And he never was sad or angry and said, boom, 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 this gotta be in there, because he said, that sounds great. Yes, that's much better than my line. I'm not a Chekhov, he said. I'm not a Shakespeare, but I give you sort of a direction. And I think for a director and writer, as he was, both writing and directing, it's very generous. And those directors, writers are the best, because they know, like a writer, and you read a lot, I read a lot today, where the writer writes for 6 characters and everybody has the same grammar. You're from Los Angeles, I'm from Sweden, but even if you and I grew up in the same neighborhood, more or less, in Los Angeles, we don't have the same kind of language.
Sure.
We use it differently, and we use it, from our parents differently. You might come from a richer family, I'm come from a poorer, or vice versa. So each individual, there were the Coen brothers and Tarantino is very good, because they have a special language for each character. What is the character's background? Because they know about the old way of writing for stage. The priest talk different than the lawyer, and the maid talk different than the mistress,
Right.
of the house. So they all have different. So Daniel said, you have to find the language for him and you for him, and he was very open. And that's the collaboration I love. That's the part of theater I love. I hate to perform theater. The rehearsal time, those 3 to 5 weeks you can have for rehearsal, is the best, because you're an adventurer. You're on a journey, you try to map out wide territory of the earth. And,
right.
And then you have to go in and become a guy by the assembly line.
Well, let me ask you this about the Grand Duke. What were some of the what did you want to bring to that role in your discovery for that character as you were going on that adventure? Can you talk to me a little bit about the Grand Duke?
What I wanted to bring in, because it's in my life, I was brought up like with a spiritual mother, and that always pointed out to me that whatever you do in your life, don't close the windows and doors that are open, because we tend, the older we get, to close all the windows and doors of our body, and we forget where the keys are, and all the hinges rust and stuff, and then they might not open anymore. So keep your mind open. And I was a dreamer as a young kid. I was very much into sit alone, staring out a window, or being in a dark room all by myself, looking at my glowing paint and stuff. So I wanted to bring into like a spirituality into him, and the fantasy there, that in this world, there's another parallel universe for me that does exist. And what is the truth really? I mean, is it just because we can touch something that is really real, or what is it? Is the Duke living in a castle, or is he a magician?
Right.
Can he alter the view of Albert that comes and visit him? Alfred Roth,
yeah.
Yeah, Alfred Roth. Can you alter and like pretend this is a grand castle? Maybe it's just a little shack. And I just wanted to toe the line where fantasy and realism doesn't have a border. You can cross it like it's an invisible border.
Right.
And I think people who are living in that kind of landscape are more happy than people who are just non-believers, who doesn't believe in anything, who doesn't believe in reincarnation or aliens or a God or the light or whatever, but everything is just here now and for me, and it ends and I'm dead. And he said, and people said to me, no, you believe in, afterlife, but for me, I'm just a flower. I grow up and then I wither and die. But I said, but the flower plants seeds, and there's another flower coming up that bears seeds from that flower. How do you explain that? Oh, I never thought of that. So I know I'm a carrier of DNA and things that goes way back. And sometimes we say we have a deja vu, or we remember things or we dream things. And for me, it's so nice when I dream, because I say, oh, that might be my ancestors' experiences, things I carry within myself. And also by talking to you now, and I said this to people during the pandemic, isn't it amazing? I know, we're bitching and itching that this got to be over. This got to be over. I got to have my vacation. I got to go on the cruise, Caribbean cruise every year. And I say, but why are you here on Earth, do you think? And they say, well, what do you mean? Well, because we have ancestors. My ancestry goes back thousands of years, yours too. And they endured, they had patience, or they had to live out. They've gone through famines, wars, they've gone through pandemics, they've gone through so many things. So you and I could be here.
Right.
For this time on Earth. Maybe this is a time where we have to rethink our way of living, and maybe see that we must provide something good for future generations. Because otherwise I wouldn't have been here if my forefathers or foremothers haven't endured all the pain and suffering.
Right.
And held back sometimes. But occasionally I find friends, and on set we talk a lot. I talk a lot, from everybody from Teamsters to prop, where I started once when I was 19 in Sweden. So I talk to a lot of people, and we get into this, and it's an eye opener for many of them, saying, you're right. I mean, I'm here because my ancestor must have survived a lot of shit.
Right, right. I mean, and you know what? That's exactly what this film touches upon, which I love about
Yeah.
it. It's so topical and does touch on that. And another thing too is Timothy Spell brings that A game as Alfred Rott. Wow, you guys have amazing performances together, and I love seeing you guys on screen. But Peter, I got to thank you so much. I love the Grand Duke. He's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But honestly, it's a great watch because it is something that is going to spark a conversation after you watch the film. So there's a lot of depth there. But Peter, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Awesome.